Welcome to the Father on Purpose podcast, featuring author and ministry leader Kent Evans and business executive and military veteran Lawson Brown. This is a show for you, Dad. You want to be a godly and intentional father. Unfortunately, you've turned to these two knuckleheads for help. Let us know how that works out for you. Before we begin, remember this: you are not a father on accident. So go be a father on purpose. Please welcome your hosts, Kent and Lawson.
Hey, Dad. Once again, Lawson and I have a gift for you. And the gift is, it won't be only him and me speaking on today's show. It will be our good friend, Jeff Zaugg with Dad Awesome. So in a moment, we'll welcome Jeff in to the mock studio. I say mock only because we're all in different places. It's not like he actually walks into the room, but we're pumped to have Jeff with us, digitally speaking, today on the show. Before we dive in, I want to mention something about a digital course that we offer called Anger-Free Dad. You may be one of the few dads on earth who has never experienced this emotion that we call anger. And if you haven't, feel free to give us a call, because we would love to see this rarity and this oddity of a dad who's never, ever bumped into the topic of anger, because we hear about it all the time. We hear from dads all around the world who tell us anger is a big issue. In fact, we heard from a guy named Russell. He's a father of 5 adult children and a grandfather of 12. And he said that he has struggled with anger and gone through anger management counseling, but wants to remain vigilant to protect his family and his witness. He has goals centered on learning and getting new tools to sharpen his awareness in this regard. And he is one of our Anger-Free Dad customers. We recently had a church near Atlanta launch over 160 guys going through that course at the same time. We're super excited about this course because it addresses a need that most dads are at least familiar with, if not daily struggling with. So, Dad, if you wrestle with anger, go to angerfreedad.com or go to manhoodjourney.org/Anger-Free Dad, and we will get you situated so that you can live a life of more peace and less anger. So let's dive in to today's show. Lawson, I'm super excited. I want to introduce my friend, Jeff Zaugg. We met a few months ago in Washington, D.C. at an event that Jeff was hosting. Jeff, so far, you and I have known each other for a few months, and already you've added tremendous value to my life. You've connected some dots. In fact, the church in Atlanta that is doing our Anger-Free Dad course, you indirectly connected us to because of the event that you led recently. And you've done a lot of that connecting over the last several years. Before we dive into all that, tell us a little bit about you and your family and the ministry of Dad Awesome.
So thankful to join you guys today, and love Manhood Journey. Dad Awesome has a similar heart, and I'll give the backstory in a second, but let me tell you the most important thing first. I am a husband. I've been married 18 years to my best friend, Michelle. We have 4 daughters, and the dad life is a gift. Like, I love being a dad to my 4 girls. In fact, for a while, for like 2.5 years, we lived in our RV, traveling the country, and I would be out for a walk, like to the laundry facility at an RV park, and I'm holding my little girl's hands, walking through the RV park, and people would say, "Man, are you hoping for a boy?" Like they assume that because I have 4 girls that I'm missing something, and I'm like, no, I'm not missing anything. The dad life is so good, but it's also overwhelming. And so we started Dad Awesome almost 7 years ago, with the intent of helping dads just like me. I was only a dad of 2 little girls at the time, because my girls are 10 through the youngest is 3.
Wow.
So the youngest has lived her whole life basically in an RV, traveling for ministry, for the mission of Dad Awesome. But yeah, it's the Dad Awesome started from a desire of, can we just help dads love the dad life, bring their full hearts, and guide their kids towards a God who is all things awesome. And it's been almost 7-year journey.
Wow, man, that sounds great to me. I don't know that my wife would be down for a 2-year RV trip with little kids, but I love that thought. How'd that come about? I'm sure most people listening were like, "Whoa, wait, what now?" You just glanced right over that 2 years in an RV thing.
Sure. Yeah, there's like two pieces to that question or that answer. One is the starting point of Dad Awesome was a spot where I felt like I was not being intentional as a dad. I wasn't reading books, wasn't listening to podcasts, had never done an online course. Shout out Anger-Free Fatherhood. You guys' course, amazing. That online cohort that you just welcomed the guys into. I'd never been to a conference, never been a part of a small group, never reached out to a mentor specifically for dad wisdom. So all of a sudden, here I am with a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, and I had not the primary inputs of intentional growth. I could say I was missing it in all those areas. So who am I to start a dad ministry, right? To start an initiative around intentional fatherhood. And truly it was an experiment that turned into, it was 10 weeks of learning and sharing. And then into, I was learning so much personally that I just kept going with this weekly podcast and small group curriculum, and it went forward. But when we started activating dads, so we realized that about half of the dads in my church community and my circle of friends did not opt into self-help in the area of, I want to grow. I want to get a daily text message to be an intentional dad, or, hey, I want to join a small group. I want to put in my earbuds voices of men talking about intentional fatherhood. About half opted out. Lots of reasons that I think dads would opt out to that intentional learning that we were creating, the curation of great resources. But as soon as we invited those men, those dads, to do something on behalf of the fatherless, so we invited these guys, would you come ride your bike 100 miles with us on behalf of our partners who directly serve the fatherless, by inviting them to action. So our big prayers, man, we'd be activating dads to lead with wonder. And we found that activation actually brought the deeper. Then we do this we just drip intentional fatherhood resources to the guys as they train and as they ride and as they fundraise for our partners. But the mission is others, with Fathers for the Fatherless. So we created this mission called Fathers for the Fatherless, 100-mile bike rides, which has now turned into obstacle course races and half Ironman and triathlons and runs and other things. But we found invitations coming around the country. Hey, would you come and help run one of these events? We're seeing what God is doing. And it started out of the Twin Cities in Minneapolis, St. Paul. So I have all these invites, and I look at my wife and my little girls, and the idea of being the dad that flies away from his girls to go lead this initiative, this Dad Awesome and Fathers for the Fatherless initiative, we're
probably
a
a lot on
spot.
the weekends too, right?
You got it. The rides are usually on Saturdays. And there's nothing wrong. Of course, there's some times you need to fly away. Mission calls us, and family can send us away from family to lead in this area. But we had the opportunity to go all in and do it as a family. So what a gift, right? What a gift. We borrowed an RV for a first lap, and then we rented an RV, and then we bought an RV. And the next thing we knew, 550 nights of living on the road in an RV, hosting these events it's just like, you can't make this stuff up.
Wait a minute.
So grateful.
How can you do that many bike rides in Minnesota? I mean, you can only bike there in July.
There's a sweet spot. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We did our first ride on Father's Day weekend, the day before Father's Day, and it was so cold, the training. We were biking in the snow, in April snow. So we were like, let's not do that. So then we moved it to August. But yes, Minnesota has had a ride every year for 6 years, and then it has spread all around the country. So we're still in awe. We can't believe it.
Hey, so real quick for the dad listening, we're currently recording this in August of 2024. I don't know when someone might be listening to it, but how would they go and register for one of these bike rides? I want to make sure we'll come back to your story, but real quick, let's give the commercial on the next rides. How can they get involved?
Yeah, our 9th and 10th event this year are still coming up in mid-October. So if they would want to join us, we're doing a Spartan obstacle course race in the Dallas Metroplex. So in Texas, we've got a couple events coming up. But then next year, we're still haven't released yet the plan for next year. But if you go to dadawesome.org, and it's just the event tab, has all of our events. And so easy to find, easy to get connected, kind of get out our email kind of updates coming out. But we just celebrated last week. So it's fun to shout this out. This is not a look what we did, but we've had over 1,000 men say yes to this mission.
Wow.
And we've been kind of creeping up on this big threshold goal. And all the money we raise, we asked the guys to raise $750 each as a fundraising piece to help our partners who directly serve the fatherless. So none of that money goes back to Dad Awesome. It's so fun to just give it away. We give it through our international partner and a local partner with each of our events. Well, we passed just 5 days ago, we passed the $1 million mark that we celebrated, giving $1 million to our partners who are doing life-changing life-changing work. And my team and I are looking at each other, the guys who kind of started this thing. We're like, can you believe this? Like, I didn't even want to wear spandex and get on a bike and bike 100 miles. Like, I didn't want to do it. And now 1,000 guys have
I think
yes.
The only organization I've given $1 million to is AT&T. Because of my cell phone bills for me and my family. So, golly, you've raised money for the fatherless, and I've sent it to the telecommunications industry.
Yes.
Hey, Jeff. Well, first of all, dude, I love your energy. You have got some fantastic optimism, and you talk super fast. And again, you've done it. You've blown by something. I think that it really struck me, and I saw it on your website. When you say lead with wonder, that struck me. And, I don't think enough people, I don't hear that. I don't hear lead with wonder or anything, kind of like that. And what it meant to me was, let's hold the hands of our children and lead our families and our wives and take a moment to realize what God is doing in our lives, in the lives of others, in what He's created. I love camping. My girls have grown up with some camping, and it's rare to go out into nature and not have that sense of wonder. So I know you weren't going down that path necessarily of nature, but how did that happen, and what does that mean to you?
Thank you for asking and kind of rewinding, because yes, I do get passionate storytelling. All of a sudden I'm way over here. So rewinding to activating dads to lead with wonder. Those 3 words, lead with wonder, that you were curious about. I think the dad life is the default, if we're not focused, if we're not prayerful, is to all of a sudden move towards passivity, or move towards, let's just keep this thing mildly under control. Let's just try to keep it under control, versus you put on the leadership. It's like, well, I've moved from passive to, no, I'm a part of charting a course. So leadership is huge for dads, and to see it as a gift. The leadership is a gift we've been given, that we can take leadership on the home front. But then with wonder, the with side is, man, it's a joy to be with my kids and let them know that I like being with them, and take them with me on the road, or to this adventure, or to this place, or to this errand, or to do this job, or to lead this mission. The with side, do your kids do my 4 little girls love being with dad? And do they see my job, my marriage, my friends as I can be with him in those spheres, right? But you add wonder, and I'm glad you mentioned nature. Wonder, my goodness, there's the stars, there's nature, there's a waterfall, there's a sunset, a sunrise, there's an ocean. There's so many things. I stopped for 15 minutes and looked at a duck. This was a couple years ago with my daughter. There was a duck in a frozen pond, and we were just talking with there's so much wonder about the feathers and how it's protected and how it's designed, and there's so much wonder if you pause. But if you invite your kids with you into that wonder, and the story we tell is, man, if a dad will take his kids to the waterfall of God's love. So this is the wonder mixed with core experiencing the love of God, being a loved son of God. If a dad will go to that waterfall, so picture a hike, picture a waterfall that maybe you've been up near. If a dad will get soaking wet with the love of God, and their kids love to be with dad, there's no way those kids don't get wet with the love of God. And that we anchor that back to Deuteronomy 30:19. I've set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Choose life, so that you and your kids may live. And that live is not survive. That live is not just a baseline. We get to choose as dads, life or death. If we choose life, if we choose to enter with our whole hearts and pursue the hearts of our kids and experience the love of God, and bring our kids with us to get wet with soaking wet with God's love, then the promise is forward to future generations with that verse. If we choose life, then they may live. And we need, that's our prayer, is that there'll be a ripple effect forward of dads that live with their whole hearts and activate, their dads that lead with wonder will raise kids who lead with wonder, and it snowballs.
So Jeff, if I'm taking my boys golfing and I'm out looking for my ball for a half an hour in the woods, does that count as leading with wonder? Because I don't know where my ball is. I'm wondering where the ball is.
That's so good. I am gonna dial into that humor for a second because curiosity and failure of like I messed up the shot. Let's be curious.
Nice job, Jeff.
Pippi Longstockings.
Senseless comment.
Here we go. Pippi Longstockings. Anyone read recently? Is this just me as a girl dad? She says be a thing finder, and she takes these two little friends out and they look for things, and they actually celebrate finding junk is what it is. And we talk about being thing finders,
AKA Kent's golf ball.
Exactly. Like, can we make it fun even when we've messed up and hit the ball where it doesn't belong? Can we make it fun? Make it fun, Kent.
Ooh,
that's
well,
good.
that I can do. That part I can do.
You turn that wasted comment from Kent into something really good.
Wasted.
Hey, so I went and saw the new movie, The Forge. We had the Kendrick brothers on podcast, and I went last night. And something you just said, there's two things in that movie that, and I don't want to spoiler alert, I don't want to give anything away because dads, go see this movie, The Forge. But you said get soaking wet with God's love. There was a moment in the movie where this young man is challenged to either he says, don't be a fountain. Excuse me. He says, be a fountain, not a drain.
Yes.
And when you said soaking wet with God's love and leading your kids with wonder and leading them to that waterfall, man, I remembered back to what he was saying. That really struck me. So talk just a little bit about how do you do that? What sorts of opportunities can you weave in practically into your life and your family with your kids, with your wife, to lead them to the waterfall?
Yeah, so such a good question. And I love the movie The Forge. I've had a chance to see it twice now. I invited guys in my area of Northeast Florida to come with me on opening night. And it is such just like for any dad listening, the easiest thing ever. It's not leading a long-term small group. It's not a coaching session. It's not just by texting some other dads and say, come to this movie with me. It's like the easiest, lowest bar to take initiative and to say, I'm going to be a difference maker versus someone waiting for someone else to take initiative in the area of the dad life and discipleship. So there we go. Everyone's been challenged and invited. Just get a few other dads and go see this movie. It will make a difference. But the analogy of a fountain versus a drain, just like take a drain versus a fountain, just give and the bubbling over. And we just talk that to pair the fountain with the waterfall. You never wonder if that waterfall is gonna run dry. Now, in the course of a season, maybe it does slow down a waterfall, but when you're there with your kids, there's never a question of, will that, like if you're at a water park, there's a chance they could turn the water off and that slide gets turned off. But a waterfall, there's no one turning that off. It's going to keep flowing and there's no scarcity in it, right? And as a dad, I want my girls to see my marriage, my friendships. I want them to know that we're a family who gives. We're a family that doesn't hoard and gather and say, more for me, more for me. We take joy. It is fun to give. And we've had a few families in our home this past week, and hosting is probably a great just practical way to do this is just get families in your home and families that are having a hard time. And it's not hard to think about. What are a few families that are just having a hard time? It could be so many different aspects of that. The families that were in our home this past week, we had a chance and our girls saw it, like we brought life to that other family. And guess who else ended the evening with a huge smile on their face? Like we as a family are way better off. Like we feel so much more like, can you believe we got to spend that evening with the family? Because when you just are a fountain and you just give, and some of it actually led to prayerfully follow-up giving to help that family out because of the place they're at in certain circumstances. And we this morning huddled up and we prayed as a family for some of our friends who are at a court hearing right now. And we're like, let's huddle up, stack hands and pray. And our entire breakfast prayer had nothing to do with breakfast. It was all about this family who we love. And so that's the examples of being a fountain of just like, man, where's our aim? And is it self-focused or others focused? And we tried to do that with the ministry, Dad Awesome. And I've told my girls, if it at all is counter family, if the giving makes me a less awesome dad, then I'll shut it down. Here's the little button to flip and the eject button to shut the ministry down. I'll shut it down if I'm not actually living not a perfect dad life, but a dad life of, they know I'm coming after their hearts. I'm praying for them. I'm for them. I'm going to be present. But they know that dad is on mission, and they like that they have a dad who's on mission. And so that's the fountain. Like I want to be about others versus just myself.
Yeah, dude. Well said. Kent and I talk a lot, and data research that Kent through Manhood Journey and the team have done says that it's a whole lot harder to do this dad thing on your own than with help. And one more reference to the Forge, and I really want to be careful here because it's a cool moment in the movie where he's relating God's word to the sword. You know, it can be a sword in our life, and he challenges this young man to hold the sword out, and he keeps talking, and he's kind of leading up to something. The sword, as he's talking, the sword's getting heavier, right? Well, what do the other dads in this little group do? They show how just with a finger, they'll come to the end of the sword and prop it up for him. And man, I literally got teary-eyed watching that scene because it was such a vivid reminder. And, you know, I've got guys in my life, but I want to be more purposeful in bringing them into the struggles in my life, not just keeping in touch, but let's go even deeper. What kind of advice or examples have you seen where God does work through us as dads with other guys in our life?
Yeah. So many. The sword picture from that film, though, of it's all his strength to hold the sword out with an outstretched arm holding a sword, and it's just one little finger. It's so light to bring such relief, and that is the parallel. Like the stories I can think of, and a lot of them actually tie to being on mission together. The friendships formed when we've joined a mission together of this Fathers for the Fatherless campaign, of guys riding together, training together, having a tire go flat and you're roadside getting bit by mosquitoes, changing the tire. And what happens over the course of time when you do things together has been all of a sudden permission given to speak into each other's life. And the counselor that I went and sat and met with a counselor the first time, my first year of marriage, 17 years ago. And it took a lot of courage for me to go see that. It actually took a devastating circumstance outside of our own marriage to get me to go see a counselor, right? The best gift ever. And I've seen so many guys move with courage to speak and say, hey, go see it. I'm going to help introduce you to a counselor because I am for your family and I want to see your family healthy and unified and whole and go the distance versus this thing implode. And so I've seen these little, and it didn't take anything for that relationship, though, that guy to speak that challenge because they've journeyed together, have sweat together, have been bit up by mosquitoes together. Now that inserting a little bit of like saying, hey, you can do this. Let me share some of my story, anchor that to some of your story, and plant some hope and some purpose and some future. It didn't take much to share that, but it was received because of a friendship formed. And we say at Dad Awesome, like, you are not being dad awesome if you're just pursuing the heart of your wife and your kids. If it's just about you and the home front, you actually have missed half the mission because it's all short-sighted. If you don't have brothers, if you don't have a few other guys that are after this mission together, you will not make it the distance. You will not be able to hold that arm, hold that strength. You have to. It's the only way to be dad awesome is to do it in brotherhood. So everything we do is trying, and I know you guys are the same way. It's like you have to move, but sometimes it's not as simple as just, well, find a few friends. Like, it actually takes some stepping stones to get from being a lonely dad who doesn't have the friends to, in my example earlier of going out to see the Forge movie together is a perfect example of just like a simple first step. I'm hosting a couple different small groups right now, and a monthly dad gathering. I just invite a bunch of guys, and it just slowly, if you take initiative and never wait till you feel like you've arrived to lead something in the area of fatherhood. As soon as Satan can get that lie planted of you have to have arrived, then he wins on a global movement of no fatherhood ministry happening, because we all are struggling, and if you look at the state of the church with fatherhood ministry, just look for groups and small group directories. Are there anyone doing dad groups? It's like, I think it's like the 1%, like 1 out of 100 are doing anything. So there's some, because that Satan is winning with this lie that you have to have arrived to lead and take initiative and be a gatherer and a curator and grab some curriculum and start a campfire. Like, it's so easy, but so few dads are the ones that are willing to go first. So I'm pretty passionate about this topic.
What's going on, dads? Check this out. Hey, in the world of fatherhood, balancing style and functionality is key, right? Range Leather gets it. Offering products like the sleek Elbert wallet and the American flag hat, it's perfect for dads on the move. Made from the finest Horween leather, Range's products don't just look good, they are built to accompany you through every dad duty with elegance and resilience. Snag your next dad essential at rangeleather.com and save 15% when you use code MJ15 at checkout. Head to rangeleather.com to get your swag. That's RANGE leather.com.
Yeah. Well, and speaking as the only perfect dad around, that's me. I can only lead so many. I can only lead so many. So I'm going to have some other help along. I'm just kidding.
Yes.
Man, for sure. Like I've had, just even in the last week, I've had guys who are involved in my life, speak into my life words of encouragement and strength that are for relationships, Jeff, I've cultivated for, in some cases, a couple of decades. Like these are not guys I met last week. These are guys I've known for 5, 10, even 20 something years. And so what you're saying to me resonates so deeply, because to live the isolated life as a man is man, that's dangerous and foolish. I'm trading emails not too long ago with somebody. I don't even know where they live geographically, but I do know that the guy is isolated, that he's reaching out because he doesn't know who else to reach out to. And what I'm asking him is, man, who do you have nearby? Who do you have that's in your circle that you can go to grab coffee with or grab lunch with? And so far, those answers have been like kind of nobody. And I'm like, ooh, man, it's going to be harder. It's going to be harder for that guy. I want to pivot a little, Jeff, we have a lot of guys listening, I'm sure, who are raising daughters. And I want to ask you questions about your kids are all really young. What are some things that you're doing or your wife is doing these days in the last year or 2 or 3 to pour into your daughters specifically? What are some things that you guys either do all together as a family, or you do, with them individually, or your wife does with them? Give a dad raising young daughters some practical tips that you have learned either on the do side or the do not side.
Yeah. The first one that jumped into my heart as you asked the question is remembrance. So we are trying in every phase to capture, look what God did. Look how God provided this house that we're renting. Look how God provided for this prayer that we were praying. Look how God provided for this family who we love. And we write those things down. We use our photos and our calendar as anchoring, like to remind us. And we try to do this monthly. And sometimes it's even more often. When we were living in the RV, it was every time we pulled up the leveling jacks and pulled in the slides and moved the RV, we made a list of look what God did. Some of them are so little. We got a discount on these tickets to go to this water park. But truly, we wouldn't have gone if it wasn't for the discount. So we say, God, thank you, right, for that good gift. And we, by really just putting a foundation of remembrance in our girls, and this would apply to boys or girls, but their little hearts, you could see their eyes. And my wife works really hard on photo books and like capturing memories, because we'll live forward with more faith and more like expectant for miracles if we can really capture, celebrate, and give thanks for the past. So that's a tool that we've used with our girls. Daddy-daughter dates. Even my oldest is about to turn 11. She's totally good with me calling it a date still, and like it's just like it's fun, it's precious, and it's simple. Yeah. We've done as small scale as we're going to go to that gas station and let her pick out which Tic Tacs, and we don't even need all of them. She eats like 2 of them. Like it's that the budget can be super low. I do try to add a little bit of epic into my dad-daughter dates, not just buy something sweet. So we'll do active based things. We'll go surfing now that we live near the ocean. And I'm working. Actually, I have a plan with my 11-year-old. She starts it here in 2 weeks when she turns 11. We have a 10-year plan of monthly 100-minute conversations, and we actually have the first 2 years mapped out. So instead of me building it, she built it with me, and it's just it's a monthly daddy-daughter date with a little deeper purpose, and it's longer. It leads to 10,000 minutes of intentional connection time over. We don't even do it every month. We do it 10 months out of the year, and because we've got a few months that we're just intentionally. She's like said, let's take the Christmas month off and birthday month off. It's fun. She picked the 2 months to take off, and we're gonna like do 10 of these a year, and we've done a few of these rounds before. This one has, we feel like we've piloted this one-on-one and a little bit of like a discipleship plan. We've done a few rounds of piloting, trying things and seeing what works. And now we have it dialed in and we're kicking it off. So you'll have to ask me to keep me accountable in a year. Did you do 10 of those with your daughter, your oldest daughter? But I truly, letting her build the plan with me versus saying, I've got a plan. Let's do this together. She's like excited for it. Each one adds, there's like a challenge each month that we've created that tie with the themes. And so that's an example of like a dad who's maybe geeking out a little bit on intentionality, but it's once a month and it's not that many minutes. It's so funny. I will make time for, if either of you guys said, hey, can we grab another half hour together to talk on this separate topic after this recording? I would say yes, if either of you guys asked.
Right.
And I've only met you guys recently. Why would I not let my 7-year-old who asked for 30 minutes, would I not hold that calendar appointment? So the dad-daughter dates and putting them on the calendar and following through, making them fun.
Jeff, I've just got to go back to what you just said.
Okay.
I want a dad to hear that so clearly, because we so frequently as men, when we've done surveys of dads and we've had thousands of answers to this question, what is your single greatest challenge as a father? Literally thousands of answers. Yes. And most of them, the vast majority, have something to say about time, which is interesting. They don't say like, my kid's addiction to their technology device or, whatever. They say, I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time. We hear that all of the time. And I would like for you just to double click on what you said a minute ago about how much time this takes and how we as men would tend to give that time away in other places, whether that's volunteer committee or business, or if someone popped into our office and said, hey, you got 15 minutes? Man, that really lands hard with me in a good way. Where are we spending our time? Where are we wasting our time? And where are we investing our time? Can you just talk a little more about that? How'd you get there mentally?
Yep. So I was given, and this may sound a little weird, but I was given $60,000 from my grandpa when I was, I was a freshman in high school.
Is your grandpa still alive?
No, he passed away. So again,
do the manhood journey pitch real quick.
I'm a freshman in high school, and he gave all 10 grandkids, he intentionally seeded money for our college in saving bonds. And I let it grow a little. Actually, maybe it was 40 and it grew to 60. And I paid that's what it took with me working hard and having minimal loans. I was able to pay for most of my college, about 75% of my college with that gift. If I would have taken the $60,000 in the year 2000, it was like, or 2001 when I paid off college, and then put it into Apple stock. Okay, if I would have put the money into Apple stock and played slow game on my college loans, that would be roughly $18 million today. If I would have taken the gift from my grandpa, the compounded interest in one stock that we know did pretty well, right? Okay, so I'm convinced, and this is, so I'm gonna use a spreadsheet analogy. I have a spreadsheet with my 4 daughters' names on the spreadsheet. And when they're about 25 to 30, there's 4 blanks of their 4 husbands' names on that spreadsheet. And then when they're about 30, they're having kids, and I have a factor of, you can do a factor of, they each have 3 kids, they each have 4, whatever the number is, but it plays forward, and each generation is on there 126 years from now. Okay, I played this out 4 generations. I will not be alive 126 years from now. I know though that if it played out at the high end of the scale, 4 kids each, future husbands, you add the different numbers of husbands and spouses and kids and grandkids, it's over 600 is just from my own family. So this is why I think it's important to do the Apple stock alongside of just the family multiplication. If kids have kids and get married and have kids and get married and have kids forward. So I pray now for those 4 future husbands. But I think I actually need a longer view of time. If I think longer out, hundreds and hundreds, if you just downscale it to 300 that would come from my own family. Dads, if we think about the longevity of investment of time, we only have this limited amount of time with our kids before the time it's tiny fractional moments once they leave the house. It's tiny fractional moments versus deep, rich opportunity when they're on the home front. So I've built this 10-year plan for my oldest to take her through 21 years old. I even know that the last few years of that scale, if she's in college or she's doing gap year stuff or on mission or whatever, it's gonna be harder to find that 100 minutes minutes once a month with my daughter. It's going to be much harder. It might have to be through Zoom calls like this one. So the reason for all those different backdrops of the Apple stock versus the long 126 year spreadsheet versus right now, these 100 minutes once a month. Dads, this is just the easiest, best investment with compounding interest than we can ever imagine. There's no possible way to spend time better than some intentional dad-daughter, dad-son outings with a little bit of a topic. And my time with my girls is 80%. 4 out of 5 questions are ridiculousness. It doesn't matter. I'm talking about weird smells. I'm talking about this or that, or if I had this growth on my arm, what would I do? I'm just like silly, ridiculous things. And then I sprinkle in one that I really care deeply about. I'll ask, hey, is there a time in the last few weeks where I've hurt you, that your heart has been sad because of something I did? And I sprinkle in some deeper, meaningful questions that give me an opportunity to show love and repentance and care. And dads, this is not hard to prioritize. We're not talking 10,000 hours. I said 10,000 minutes is my goal with my 10-year-old over 10 years. It's just sprinkling in intentional time. So I could go on and on and on. Did that answer the question you asked as far as why?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, being intentional like that, I love it. You're also modeling communication with men when you're doing this with your daughters. I think about that, as they're growing in their relationship. I have 2 that are in their early mid-20s, and you can see in their lives that the expectation they have of men is based on what they've seen. So way to go, dude. And I also want to just throw this at you and just affirm the work that you're doing. The Bible says to lift each other up. I was reading Romans 12 earlier this morning. Romans 12, 11, and 12. They remind me of you, and now knowing you remind me back to this. Romans 12, 11 says, never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervor, serving the Lord. And 12 says, be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, and faith in prayer. Dude, way to go. I love that you just have grabbed your family up. You're all in. It's so obvious that God is doing work through you and your family. And I think that there's a movement among fathers that is growing, and it takes God working through people like you. And so hats off, man. Thank you very much. I'll have one more question, and I'll turn it over to Kent. You were very intentional. You probably have a spreadsheet on this with 4 tabs, one for each of your daughters. Knowing you now, how do you parent? How do you be a dad? They're different, I would assume. All 4 have very different personalities. You can do a lot of things similarly, but you also have to know your kids, and you have to know what makes them tick. You have to understand their personality. That takes time as well. It takes intentionality. It takes paying close attention. How do you, as a dad, be a dad to each of your 4 daughters in a way that meets them where they are?
Great question. And I feel like each phase I have to rediscover and re-pray into what's the current phase for each of my little girls and their hearts, and helping them know that they're treasured, and helping them know that I want to spend time with them. And there are some anchoring parts of the day that I think I get a reminder to myself. Bedtime. So I do bedtime. I don't know how many dads are just kind of in charge of bedtime, but it's my domain, is bedtime. And it does give me kind of an extended time to pray with, often I need to insert an earbud and be listening to you guys' curriculum around anger free, because I feel like 80% of the bedtime process is, I'm internally how in the world is this taking so long? And why can't you stop interrupting me?
We need a new course called Anger Free Bedtime.
Yes, I so needed. So bedtime though is a moment to put my hand on theirs and to whisper truths and blessings. So bedtime is one of those anchoring, it is a connection point as a group, but also individually. Mornings, as each of them wake up, I'm pretty much always in the living room. That's a spot that I am early in the morning that I get to give them that first hug of the day. It's just another affirmation moment of my love for them. Fridays have become our kickoff to our Sabbath as a family, and we have a dinner that I'm able to pray blessings and specific courage into their little hearts. And so it's
Wow.
my light a candle, and it's my domain. I get to pray over all 4 of my girls in that moment at a Friday dinner as we kind of kick off our Sabbath. So there's a few anchoring things, and then the daddy dates that I mentioned, but the actual individual, does this daughter need to cook a meal together with me? Is it that our connection point? Is it going out playing a board game at a coffee shop? Is it going for a run because we're training for a Spartan? All 4 of my girls now do Spartan obstacle course races they go do the kid version, which is wild. And they're getting into the things that dad loves. So right now, it's not that hard to find delight and joy and adventure with my girls. It's actually like tonight we're going to Costco, and I'm in charge. My wife's hosting a group here, so dad at Costco with my girls. I don't want to do that. But there is a way to make it fun and to add some adventure and to make it a little bit of mission. And one of the girls gets to hold the checklist, and they get to scout and go out and grab stuff. And we try to make it fun, try to turn the drudgery, because there is, a lot of dad life is like, I just want to get through this. Like this is not personally fulfilling in this moment. So if you can gamify, add a little challenge, add a little adventure, a spark. I tell pirate dog stories. I've created a series of stories for my girls, and it's the adventures of Pirate Dog and the secret agent sisters. And they're always solving challenges and being like missional and adventurous.
Oh my goodness.
And I make these up on the fly. And a lot of nights I don't want to tell them because I'm frustrated at how bedtime's going. But they bring adventure.
Tonight, Pirate Dog is super angry. Well, Daddy, wasn't Pirate Dog mad last night? Yeah, he's mad a lot. And we got to solve the problem.
It's therapy. It's therapy for me. You got it. You nailed it.
Pirate Dog's on the couch talking to his therapist. That's what Pirate Dog's doing. Jeff, obviously, dads, go to dadawesome.org. Go listen to the Dad Awesome podcast. I have come quickly to love and appreciate you, Jeff, partly because your heart is open to partnership, and you have a kingdom-minded vision. One of the first things Jeff ever emailed to me was this idea for how we could get fatherhood organizations to work better together. And so it's just amazing to watch a guy like you be a catalyst inside the fatherhood movement for so many different ministries and connections. Man, God bless you, and I pray continued blessings on your work. I want to give you kind of like the final word to a dad. We hear from dads a lot who, if I could describe the kind of general vibe from the dads we tend to hear from, it's dads who feel like they are failing. Mm-hmm. It's dads who feel like they are not doing enough. They're not doing enough of the right things. They're not making enough money. They're not home enough. And there's this general sort of malaise, I would say, across Christian dads where they just feel like, man, life's on top of them. Situations are on top of them, and they don't feel like they can get their head above the dad water. I would like for you to take a minute and just talk to that dad who probably is listening to this show, or you, dad, might be listening to this show, and you know a dad who feels that way. You know a dad who's in the middle of it. You need to send that dad today's episode, because they will be so encouraged by Jeff's enthusiasm and his zest for life and his focus on the gospel. Jeff, would you just close us out by talking to a dad who feels discouraged? How would you speak encouragement and life into the life of that dad?
Yeah. Thank you for the invitation. And I'm speaking this to myself. Like, this is truly, I need to hear this today. We carry a backpack as a dad, and through our life as a child, as a young adult, as a newly married, as a dad, things have been added to our backpack that are weight that we're not designed to carry. There's weight that adds up, weight from our own fathers, or our father wasn't around, so that added weight. There's weight from things that we've done wrong, or hurts that we've done and caused to ourselves, or other people have caused to us, or maybe a church or a pastor has caused. And we add this weight, and a generation of dads carrying weight is not going to be a generation of dads bringing their full hearts to the dad life, or their full hearts to their kids, their full courage. And what God invites us to do is throw it off is not this gentle invitation of just, take it off and set it down. It's like, no, throw it off. Hebrews 12, 1 and 2 is like, throw off the things that hinder, the sin that so easily entangles. So it might be weight from the past or things we're caught up in right now. Dads, there's things that we might be caught up in that we need to take seriously, the throwing off of those things. So, because it will so easily entangle, and it will cause us to have just carry this heavy burden that we're not designed to. We're actually designed to fix our eyes on Jesus and run this dad life with joy and with purpose, with mission. And our kids are watching our eyes. And so if you as a dad feel like your eyes are dull today, if you're feeling, man, it's because I'm carrying all this weight, God invites us, Jesus invites us to throw it off and to receive what Jesus received the day he was baptized. Like, guys, we have to hear this. The heavens ripped open when Jesus was baptized. And by the way, there was like 15 years that he could have been doing purposeful ministry, but he actually humbled himself, Jesus, and was an apprentice to his earthly father, Joseph, before he was activated into mission. So Dad, the time horizons often were like, we should be like rocking it right now. And there's all kinds of things in our life that may feel like delays or a job or this or that. Jesus, though, when he was activated, the heavens ripped open. And God said, you are my loved son. So dads, I want you to hear it. Like, you are a loved son of God. That's your identity. Be a son before you're trying to be a father. You are a loved son of God. And then he says, in you, I am well pleased. Like, those words are for us as adopted sons of God. We get to walk in being a loved son of God and knowing that God's pleasure is all over us. He's like, you can do it. You're a dad who can do it. Doesn't matter the way you used to carry. You can throw it off, receive my love, walk as a loved son of God, and bring your whole heart and your shiny eyes to the dad life. So that's my encouragement to all of us, is like, walk in that like confidence and swagger, like be dad awesome, like live into the manhood journey and all the tools, like live into this with your full heart, guys, because you don't have to walk that way with dull eyes and a heavy bag. You can throw it off and just be purposeful, be joyful, experience wonder, and it'll be contagious to your kids.
Well said, bro. Nice.
Dad, you've been listening to a conversation with me and Lawson that we're having with Jeff Zaugg at Dad Awesome. Jeff has interviewed some amazing guys on his podcast. Go back and listen to one of the Dad Awesome episodes, or just binge it over a weekend, and you will come out feeling better and more excited as a dad, more spiritually empowered, more loved by God. Jeff, thank you so much for joining us on the show. We can't wait to have you back.
Hey, love you guys, and can't wait to chat again.
Hey, Dad, thank you for listening to today's show. If you found this episode helpful, remember, you can get all the content and show notes at manhoodjourney.org/podcast. And if you really liked it, please consider doing 3 things. Number 1, share this podcast with someone. You can hit the share button in your app, wherever you listen to podcasts, or just call a person up and tell them to listen in.
We're sorry, your call cannot be completed as dialed.
Number 2, subscribe to this podcast so you get episodes automatically. That helps us as well to help dads find the show. You can do that through your favorite listening app, whatever that is. And finally, review this podcast. Leave us a review, good or bad, wherever you listen. Those reviews also help other dads find the show. You can always learn more about what we're up to at manhoodjourney.org or fatheronpurpose.org. We will see you next week.